Are you willing to give up the good in order to go for the great? So, this week's quote from John D. Rockefeller, which is actually don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great, is the question that I'm asking myself and you this week. So, this is a concept that I find myself repeating fairly often. Most recently in a local podcast I was interviewed on, but also on the Success Through Community podcast that I co host. And honestly, I didn't actually know where it came from. It was just a concept that I had heard somewhere that stuck with me. And now I understand that it's typically attributed to John Rockefeller, which does make sense because he's clearly the kind of man, clearly was the kind of man who pursued greatness, right? But how does this apply to me or to you as a solopreneur? So honestly, I think I would argue that it applies to us more than to someone like Rockefeller. Because when Rockefeller, even when he just started out, he was pursuing his goal, pursuing his dream with his family. And that tells me that he wasn't doing everything himself, unlike solopreneurs like us. Because as we both know, we wear all of the hats in our business. And we also need to fulfill all of our personal commitments. I would argue that this concept of basically time management, I mean, let's be real. That's what we're talking about here time management. Because what is our most finite resource? Time. If we pursue every opportunity that comes our way, we're either not going to be able to give anything the attention that it deserves, or we're going to find ourselves completely burned out, or both. So, this requires us to make decisions sometimes really difficult decisions about what is worth doing and what isn't. And that doesn't mean that the things that we decide aren't worth doing aren't good. In fact, a lot of the times they are good. And that's what makes this decision so difficult. We have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of, is this furthering my goal? Is this in line with my values? Which actually makes me think of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I read it earlier this year for my other podcast. Go listen to that episode if you haven't. But he talked obviously a lot about understanding your why. Obviously. Why are you a business owner? Why are you in this particular industry? Why do you have this specific business model? But he also talks about the importance of what you do. Like he says that the what of what you do, of what your business is, what your services are, what your products are, should be a direct reflection, should be basically the visible reflection of your values, of your why. So if that's the case, then sometimes you have to make decisions based solely on whether or not this opportunity aligns with your values. Even if it's a good, I almost said great, but even if it's a good opportunity, honestly, even if it's a great opportunity, if it's not in line with your values, it's not in line with your business and your purpose for your business, then it's not a great opportunity for you. I know for myself, there have been a handful of times where I was approached with an opportunity to collaborate, maybe on a video, or I was approached by a client who wanted a service that I don't typically provide, which would require me to scramble or, kind of shift gears from what I have decided to focus on. And there are definitely times where I've made the right decision and I've stayed focused where I needed to be. But looking back, there are definitely times where I made the wrong decision, either out of fear or scarcity or just because I wanted to people please. I wanted to say yes. And looking back on that, I wish that I had said no. So, this is, I think, a really important topic for us to talk about as solopreneurs because it comes up a lot, right? We're often approached with things that, might take us off track. And we're going to shift and pivot enough as it is intentionally. We need to be very, very careful about our time and make sure that we're not letting other people dictate our path. If we do that, then it's the same thing as having a job, right? That's like letting these other people, letting these potential customers become our boss. instead of remembering that we're the boss and we decide who we work with and when and why. So let me give you an example of where I feel like I've made the right decision in my own business, and maybe that will help you reflect on situations like this in yours. So this year, I made the decision to completely change my business model. I went from one on one coaching and group programs and like individually sold online courses to an all inclusive membership, monthly membership option. This was something that I had thought about doing for a long time. There were many reasons why I was considering it, admittedly, many of them selfish. But ultimately, after weighing those pros and cons and really looking at why I do what I do and my values, the decision became really clear. Working one on one or even in small groups with clients is good because it gives me the ability to get to know them personally, to meet them where they are in their techie journey, and potentially give them extra support or extra attention in order for them to feel more confident. That is a big part of why I do what I do in order to help build the confidence, especially of women business owners when it comes to this techie stuff. But the problem with that is that with that one-on-one attention comes a higher price tag. It has to. I mean, we talked about it a minute ago. Our finite resource, our most finite resource is time. So while I know for a fact that my one-on-one prices are low for the industry, I also know that they prevented too many women from getting the help that they need and deserve. So I had to make the decision, am I going to keep going down that path and potentially not fulfilling my why, which, by the way, is to help as many women as possible while being respectful of their budget? Am I going to be able to do that with that business model as good as it is? No. So I needed to make the decision to move to something that was potentially great, to do all of the extra work to build out this membership platform, to figure out how to find a way to still be able to give that personalized attention and that extra support and, individual attention to the women who need it while in this different environment. That was a lot of work and it took a lot of effort, but I can already see that it was so worth it. I can already see that so many more women, so many more business owners are able to, I don't want to say justify, but it's easier to make the decision to jump into something that doesn't cost as much, but that also fits into their schedule better. And I'm able to help so many more people this way, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's absolutely worth it. But now it's your turn. I want to know, what do you think about all this? What do you think of this idea of giving up the good to go for the great? Is this something that you're good at? Is this something that you struggle with? Is this something that you think is total crap and you disagree with it? Let me know in the comments.